to the UIAAA Connection podcast. GoFan and VNN are proud to be the exclusive sponsor of the UIAAA Connection. Now a combined company, GoFan and VNN provide a seamless integration for digital ticketing and athletic websites. Direct your fans to one place for all your athletic events, communications, and tickets to home and away games. Thank you to GoFan and VNN for their exclusive sponsorship of the UIAAA Connection.
Welcome back to another edition of the UIAAA Connection. I'm your host, Mark Hutch Hunter. Today we have as our special guest, Deren Oshiro, Certified Master Athletic Administrator and current member of the NIAAA Board of Directors and current state president for the Hawaii Athletic Directors Association. Welcome to the podcast, Deren.
Hey, thanks for having me.
Let's have you begin by sharing with our audience where you grew up, where you went to college, your first job, etc.
We won't say the year because it was a long time ago, but I was actually born on the mainland. I was born in Fort Worth, Texas. Even though my dad is originally from the Big Island and my mom is from Kauai, I was born in Texas when he was in seminary. So I'm the son of a Baptist minister. We relocated here when I was young. So I basically, for all intents and purposes, am Hawaiian. I've been here, since I was like maybe 5 or 6.
Sure.
Went to school at the same school that I'm now serving at. So I'm a graduate of Hawaii Baptist Academy. I went to school at University of Hawaii and came back to teach right away. So I'm in my 33rd year at my alma mater. So 9 years of teaching, 13 years, 12 years of coaching because I started when I was in college. And I'm in my 24th year as AD here. So it's been a labor of love at alma mater. Yeah.
That is awesome. Tell me about when you were younger on the in the islands, the opportunity for youth sports there. And your opportunity would be bigger because it wouldn't be just baseball, football, basketball. You'd have like canoeing and surfing and all that kind of other stuff.
Yeah, no, we're probably, you and I are probably more from the same generation, but my recollection of my youth is really playing outside after school, with the neighborhood kids and getting home when it got dark for dinner. And, we didn't watch a lot of TV. We definitely didn't play a lot of video games or anything like that. So in terms of organized sports, I'm sure there was a lot out there, but I didn't play a whole lot of it. It was just really hanging out, being a kid and riding a bike around the neighborhood and playing pickup this and that and hanging out with friends. I did also spend almost every summer for probably up until maybe my freshman or sophomore year in high school. Every summer, my parents would send my brother and I to Kauai, where my maternal grandparents lived. And so it was basically beach every day, picnics, fishing with my grandfather, just pole fishing, right there in Lihui, close to where we've had the Section 7 meetings, right there.
Right.
Really small boat harbor.
Wow.
That was my youth. Yeah, that was my youth. So I just remember a lot of that, beach, fishing, and playing with friends, more so than organized sports.
That's incredible. What led you? Well, no, we'll save that for a minute. Let's talk for a minute about some of the mentors and leaders, coaches you've had in your life that have made a difference to put you where you are today.
I'd say my biggest influences were my parents. Looking back on it, we couldn't have had very much in the way of financial resources, but I never felt like we were poor. We always had what we needed. It was just a real loving, supportive environment from as long as I can remember. Like I never had a curfew. Not that curfews are bad, but I guess they always trusted my brother and I. And until we gave them a reason not to trust us, there was a lot of flexibility in our household. My parents taught me a lot just in terms of how they raised me, and I think professionally, my the supervisor that I've had most of my last 8-10 years here, the school president here, has been very influential and very supportive. And then of course, at the NIAAA level, there've been several folks that have made a tremendous impact me, just like yourself. So I've been really blessed to just have a whole lot of people that have been positive role models and influences in my life for sure.
Let me ask you a personal question, Deren. What's your biggest failure or disappointment in life, and what did you learn from it?
Probably, again, I've been blessed in terms of personal life and wonderful wife of almost 28 years, 2 great kids, all that. So I'd say professionally, and this is pretty recent, I hired a coach whom I had a lot of misgivings about, and it was kind of a spectacular fail, let's just say. And so I kind of learned from that, maybe to better trust my instincts and intuition. It was kind of a tough situation because it was the only applicant for the position. So I was kind of trying to decide whether or not to, pursue someone else or potentially not have the sport, or go with this particular person. So I chose the latter. It didn't work out, unfortunately. But certainly if I'm presented with that situation again in the future, hopefully not, but if I'm in that situation of coach or maybe not have the program, maybe we'll take a year's hiatus for that particular program. So I would say that was probably my my biggest fail. Learned a lot. Learned a lot from that.
That's a fascinating answer. I want you to talk for a moment about when you first became director of athletics years and years ago, and compare it to the job you have now, and tell us how much it's changed, or tell us how much it's different and how much has been added on to during those years.
Well, being involved at my alma mater all this time, it's been very rewarding to kind of see the growth of our school. I'm at a small private school on Oahu. Our high school enrollment is about 450, 460 co-ed. So you can kind of do the math. The classes are a little over 100 per grade level. When I started back in 2000, probably about 35 to 40% of our student athletes, or of our student body, I should say, participated in athletics. Today, it's close to 75%. And about 40% of those, on a given year, 35 to 40% of those participate in multiple sports. So a lot more involvement. When I started, we had about 25 or 26 teams. Now we have 48 teams in the sports that we field.
Wow.
And Hawaii is unique in that we're the first state in the country, because it started back in the 70s, I believe, where students from a bunch of small schools participated together in sports that they couldn't otherwise field on their own. So about half of our sports are actually we play as part of a co-op. So
okay.
the program is called Pac-5 because when it started back in the 70s, there were 5 schools. Now Pac-5, on any given year, per gender or per sport, it can be from as few as 3 or 4 schools but up to as many as 11 or 12. So
That's
when our
incredible.
kids, yes, when our kids play like football, soccer, baseball, um, and even sports like canoe paddling and judo, wrestling, we play as a part of Pac-5. Pac-5's colors are orange and brown and white. But the other sports like that we can field our own, cross country, basketball, volleyball, golf, tennis, bowling, track and field, those sports, they're called, we call those standalone sports, or we have standalone teams, which just means that those are HBA teams. So they're wearing the black and gold. They're competing with all of their classmates. So our kids kind of have a opportunity to have a pretty rounded sports experience for interscholastic sports. They might be playing football with kids from 7 or 8 other schools, but when they play basketball, they're playing for HPA. So yeah, very interesting how it's set up here. So it's been good. Obviously we wouldn't be able to field football and a bunch of these other sports because we're just too small. But having that opportunity to be a part of a co-op has been really valuable for our students, for sure.
That is fascinating. I want you to talk for a minute about your journey with the HIATA and then on to the NIAAA. And I mention this because I know quite a few people in Hawaii. My first Section 7 meeting in Hawaii was 1999. And it was after then that I met you and so many other of the Hawaii people. So talk about how you got involved. And at the same time, I think you're just finishing your second year as the president, or you just barely finished it. So talk about being able to serve in that role also.
Yeah, so my journey to service at the state and national level has been kind of unique. And actually, this is part of what I shared in my short speech at the national conference last December in Nashville. But I made the conscious decision to kind of hold off on serving like at the state and national level until both of my kids graduate from high school. There were a couple of ADs when I was just starting out in 2000 that kind of pulled me aside and just, basically said, hey, learn from my mistake or learn from our mistakes. It's easy to get inundated with work, and before you know it, your relationships at home aren't that great, with your family, and not to say that we all know a ton of athletic administrators that seem to make it work and they're heavily involved at the state and national level and they have young families, but it made an impression on me to where I knew that I wasn't going to accept nominations or volunteer for too much beyond what I was doing for my school and my league. I have done stuff at the HHSA level just with the sport I coordinate, which happens to be girls volleyball. So anyway, it really started only in 2019. So, and that June, my son graduated high school, and HIATA actually was going through a period of major uncertainty. And I think you were at the Section 7 meeting on Kauai that year, but that October, I succeeded my league representative on the board. And as a new guy on the board, I came out of that first board meeting as a president. So
there you go.
Right. Give it to the new guy. So it's been about 4 years serving as president. So we basically decided to incorporate as a nonprofit, conduct a search for an executive director. And we're blessed to have Bill Villa in that role. And then spent the better part of 2 years basically trying to piece together records and apply to the IRS for our tax exempt for our tax exempt status, our 501c3, which we just received not this past August, but August of 2022. So going through COVID, having one completely virtual conference, and then the last 2 years having a return to in-person conferences has been good. So just getting that going and kind of hopefully bringing a little stability to the organization. That's been kind of my path with IATA. And then in a AAA, even shorter. I just started serving on my first committee in 2020 when the DEIB, the Diversity, Equity, Inclusion, and Belonging Committee was put together. And then in 2021, through the HHSA here, I was an NFHS on the NFHS side. That the one committee that's jointly NIAAA and NFHS is the NADC Advisory Committee.
Right.
So I'm serving on that as an NFHS appointed person. And then first section meeting last year, was nominated to run for that large position, which I did in December. So here I am. It's been kind of a whirlwind, really, but really super thankful for the opportunities and expanding my network, growing professionally myself, and hopefully benefiting others too in the process.
And so I want you to talk for a minute about putting your name in the hat to run for at-large. One of the reasons I bring this up, and you probably don't know this, but I ran for the at-large and lost in New Orleans in 1999 in my early involvement in the NIAAA. Well, obviously you put your name out there. Obviously you think you're qualified. You think you're going to win. But I want people to understand it's a tough thing because you grew up in your state like I did, and you have all your state connection. You put your name out there nationally, and you're just wondering, wow, do I know enough people? Is it going to work? How do I stack up against the other people running? So I want you to talk about that for a minute because it was really daunting for me. I don't know how it was for you.
No, I 100% agree. It was pretty nerve-wracking. The prospect of potentially serving on the board was something that I was interested in. And because of how it works, where every state in a section can select someone to serve on the board for a 3-year term, and the states rotated among sections, you're basically, depending on the number of states in your section, you're looking at one opportunity, in our case for Section 7, right, with Utah, where you're at, Hawaii, California, Nevada, and Arizona. You're looking at one opportunity every 15 years.
Right.
And I'm no spring chicken. So I just looked at it like, well, might as well go for it. I was nominated. So that went into my thought process of accepting it and putting myself out there. Cause I'm like, I'm really not going to have another opportunity. I'm hoping in 15 years to be retired. So in that sense, the thought process, deciding to run wasn't too difficult, but going through the process, it's an experience that you probably can't really prepare for or really explain fully. You're giving your speech on the front end. It was the conference in Nashville was the highest attended ever for those that are listening. But it included about 700 first-time attendees out of the 3,100 people that were there. So, but to me, standing on that stage, that opening session was really well attended. It was packed. But you're doing that at the very beginning of the conference, and you don't find out the results of the election until the very end,
Till the
last
very end.
day. So Dustin Smith, of Oklahoma now, who was he ended up winning the other election. He and I went through it together. So we'll always kind of have that bond and that kinship because we would run into each other and, hey, how you doing? You okay? I'm all right, hanging in there. Um, it's just it was unique. It I went in thinking, okay, if this is a great experience, if I don't win, no problem. But once you're in it, you want to win it, right?
Sure.
Human nature. And I'm sure it was terribly disappointing for the two that didn't win, um, but yeah, very unique experience, very nerve-wracking, very stressful. But yeah, I'm glad I came through it and survived.
That's excellent. I want you to share, if you would, you've been on the board for close to a year now. Any stories about in the boardroom, or more importantly, outside the boardroom, where you make those connections with people from across the U.S.? Because I know every board is a little bit different. And so share with our audience about being able to have that blessing to serve on the board.
No, that's the operative word there. It's been a blessing. It's just another environment where you can meet and collaborate with and get to know folks from all over the country, right? I mean, you have one representative from each of the 8 sections. You have 4 at-large board members, at-large representatives, and you have some officers, past president, secretary, NEDC, liaison, etc. So it's just a very rewarding experience, and I feel so fortunate to be able to have it. They keep saying, it's interesting. One of the jokes or ongoing things, which is really true, is from your first board meeting, they're kind of telling you when you're going to rotate
You're
off.
going to go off. There's
Yeah,
that paper that's got 3 years away, and even though you got here, this is when you're leaving. Exactly.
Right. And so which is great, because it's such a wonderful experience. If it's something that you want as many people as possible to be able to have it, right? Have that opportunity. So obviously it wouldn't make sense to have anybody go beyond 3 years. But yeah, from the very first meeting, you're reminded of the schedule, which people are going to rotate off, what year, what state is up to put someone on the board. But again, just the network that you get to build, you get to expand that, and just grow. Hear and learn from others, and just kind of learn from their successes and their failures or their struggles. And I think it just helps you back home at your school and your league and state. Yeah.
You mentioned earlier about Nashville being the most attended conference. I'm interested in your observations about being a participant there, not so much because I know running and you had to speak and all that stuff, but all the other stuff that went on as just a regular member of the NIAAA. I'm interested in your observations of that big of a conference.
Well, it's no secret that one of the less than ideal occurrences was they ran out of rooms, right? So some people had to get walked, in quotes, I guess the term is, which just means that they had registered on time, but then they had to get pushed out to one of the offsite hotels, and there were some issues with that. I think there were some people that registered very early that didn't have hotel rooms, and there were some people that registered late that did get hotel rooms. So, but all of that stuff, with an event that large, and I've again been able to be on the NADC advisory committee for a couple of years, and we kind of help with the planning. With an event that large, despite everyone's best efforts in planning and preparing, it's inevitable that some things are going to go wrong. But I know just the sheer size was a struggle in terms of the rooms. We're all trying to figure out was this kind of an anomaly, an aberration where maybe the attendance is going to kind of drop back down to a more traditional number, or is it kind of the start of a trend of having a group that size and potentially even larger? It looks like the registration for this coming conference is going to be similar, and maybe it might eclipse Nashville, but we just weren't sure. I mean, Nashville's kind of a destination, but so is Orlando.
So it's
right?
Orlando, right?
With the theme parks and the weather and whatnot. So I was there, I think, 6 or 7 nights, because I had to stay in case I was selected to the board. I had to stay for that extra day, the first board
Right.
meeting on that Wednesday. I only left the property once in that whole time. So it was neat that a lot of, there's enough there in the way of restaurants and amenities where you're kind of there in the bubble, but it also spoke to how much was going on. And for me anyway, personally, how busy I was. But I went outside for one meal, and everything else I was there in that Gaylord Opryland. So yeah, cool experience for sure.
Deren, what's the favorite part of your job?
Couple things. I mean, I think I do like the fact that I'm not necessarily tied to my office or my desk. I like to get out, and even I think probably there's others like me. I mean, it's even when we have our monthly AD meetings, we're kind of getting back to in-person meetings and not doing them all on Zoom. So it's nice to go visit the different schools, break up your day a little bit. Of course, getting out and going and supporting your teams at events. But I think with that, it's just the ability to see students experience learning and growth in a different setting. So obviously they're in school to learn, and they're in a classroom environment most of the day, but just the experiences they have competing and trying to compete and dealing with setbacks, having to learn how to manage your time, having to learn and respect different types of coaches. I think that's really rewarding for me. And it's part of their preparation for adulting, right?
Right.
Life after high school and getting prepared for college and beyond. So just seeing that process, and it goes quickly too. Not every varsity athlete, of course, gets to play 4 years. Some of them do, but most of them, when it comes to varsity sports, it's just 1, 2, or 3 years. So it goes quickly, but there's just opportunities for learning and growth that you just don't get in the classroom. I think just being a part of that, and maybe not having that direct contact with the students, but knowing that you're playing a big role in planning things and enabling things to happen, so that they get those experiences. That I enjoy that for sure.
Some great insight. Let me finish up with a couple of questions, Deren. The first one being, I need 2 suggestions from you for a brand new AD. I need Deren's suggestions, and the new AD has to follow these suggestions in order to be a success. What would those 2 things be?
One would be to take advantage of all that the NIAAA has to offer. Take those foundation level classes, 501, 2, and 3. Get certified as a registered athletic administrator, and progress toward your CAA and hopefully CMAA. The content is invaluable. When they talk about all of the legal issues, it could maybe scare some young ADs away, but it's really, really good content, I think, and it just kind of lays the foundation, I guess, for a young administrator. The second thing would be, I guess, locally, for ADs to kind of find their circle of administrators, fellow administrators that they can comfortably share with without being judged, that they can ask questions of them or ask them for help, and just kind of at least find a group that outside of regular business meetings or AD meetings that they can go to coffee with and kind of catch up with, and share one another's burdens, celebrate one another's successes, and just kind of grow as people. Because I think making those connections and having that circle or that group can really pay dividends, especially when you're going through difficult times. So that's something that I think the last 8 or 10 years, so it hasn't been my whole career, but maybe in the last 8 or 10 years, I have a group like that here in Hawaii, where we have a standing coffee meeting every Friday. So we just went to it this morning, in fact. And it's good because we don't always agree, but because we have our relationship is a little deeper than just the casual professional courtesy type relationships, we're able to kind of tell each other, hey, appreciate your position on that, but what about this? This is maybe something that you can consider, or I don't agree with you on this because of this. And we can have those conversations and not get offended. You still can maybe get disappointed, but it's just a healthy type of environment where you can exchange ideas and basically help one another. I guess that would be my thing. Focus on developing professionally and get involved with the LTI courses and certification to the IAAA, and then also kind of build your circle or your network locally in your league at home.
Those are great suggestions. I'll finish with this. Deren, what question should I have asked you that I failed to ask you?
I don't know. I mean, when's the next time Section 7 is in Hawaii? I don't know.
Well, yeah. Let me just double check, because I think that's probably 4 years from now, and I'm guessing that I probably, since I won't be the executive director anymore, I probably will not be there. But I assume that's when the next section meeting in Hawaii is. I'm sure. Well, I'll see you obviously in Orlando, and then see you again at the Section 7 meeting in Vegas this spring. But that wraps it up.
I guess, well, this is what's
yeah.
interesting. I mean, you didn't ask about it. I'm just kind of thinking through things. I mean, it's when you talk about me being here in Hawaii or other ADs here, it's a commitment to try to get involved, even with the section, but certainly nationally, because the travel and the struggles in dealing with time zone change and jet lag, the struggle is real.
Oh, I'm sure.
And I just noticed I've attended every in-person national conference since 2008 in San Diego. Of course, 2020, due to COVID, there was that deferment. We didn't have a conference then, but just going to every conference since 2008, just over that time, as I age physically, I can tell that it's tougher. It gets tougher and tougher to travel. And, Indianapolis, which is the headquarters for the NFHS and the NIAAA, it's got to be one of the furthest points west that's still in the Eastern time zone.
Right.
But when I went up to my meeting, my first board meeting in person in February, I didn't do a good job of trying to go to sleep earlier and wake up earlier and kind of prepare my body clock, which I normally try to do. I was busy, and then I just kind of, by the last couple of days, I'm like, it's not going to matter. And I was staying up late, waking up early, whatever, here in Hawaii. And I paid the price when I went up. It was a struggle to get through those long long meeting days.
Yeah, I'm
So
not
this
sure
past
people
July,
understand. When you have a 7 a.m. breakfast with the board, it's
1
1 in
a.m.
the morning in Hawaii. I mean,
Correct.
people
And you, yeah,
complain
and you can,
at 2 or 3 hours. It's 6 hours away.
right. So when I heard some of my colleagues complaining about 1 or 2 hours, 2 hours difference, I'm like, come on, man. But for the July meeting, I was a lot smarter, and like 4 or 5 days out, I progressively started getting up earlier and going to sleep earlier, to the point where even though my red eye flying up in July, I was leaving Honolulu about 9 or 10 o'clock at night. That morning, I woke up at 2 in the morning, and I stayed up all day just so I could kind of sleep some on the plane. And when I got to Indy, my body clock would be more prepared, and it really helped. But the price of paradise, I guess.
Sure.
But it's traveling east is a bear. So Nashville, that's a red eye. That's an overnight flight. Orlando's going to be, Indianapolis always is. So it's just something unique for us. We just have to deal with it.
Yeah. Well, we love our Hawaii brothers in the athletic director world. And on that note, that wraps it up for this edition of the UIAAA Connection. Again, our guest today has been Deren Oshiro, Certified Master Athletic Administrator, current president of the HIATA, and current member of the NIAAA Board of Directors. Deren, thanks so much for being here today.
Hey, Hutch, thank you so much. Always good to see you.
For our listeners, we hope you tune in again next week for another edition of the UIAAA Connection.